Hey guys, this is Gatsby with Tape, and today you join me for another episode 6 of Realism Overhaul Project Lunar, and we start, as we often do, in the Vehicle Assembly Building with MR1. That is Moon Rover 1, again, extremely inventively named, I know, I'm amazing. But yes, this is our first Moon Rover, because we need to get in a little more practice landing on the moon before we send Kerbal's next episode, and I thought a fun way to do that would be with a Moon Rover. So this is the first thing we're launching today, is launching on top of a Taurus 2 launch vehicle. We've seen that a bunch of times in this series so far. It's my workhorse for unmanned payloads, and if you want to know more about it and haven't seen episode 1, go check that out. So yeah, I'm just going to talk through the payload then. So if we, oh my god, no, there's a fairing stuck in the payload. So yes, this is the payload. It is the rover. It comprises of 3 things. The rover, of course, the sky crane, and the transfer stage. So the transfer stage just uses an Astris engine. This is a German engine. It provides 22.5 kilonewtons of thrust, and it was used on the Europa 1 and 2 vehicles. It's pretty efficient. It's just good. It works perfectly for taking light payloads to the moon or anywhere else, really. And it burns Aerosine 50 and nitrogen tetroxide. Anyway, so taking a look at the sky crane, this is a little bit janky, because, well, the moon's got pretty low gravity and we want to land a rover, so I needed some pretty low thrust, high gimbaling engines. So I actually went for LR101 Vernier thrusters, which aren't exactly vacuum engines. They're just for controlling rockets on the way up. So yeah, they're Vernier thrusters. They're the LR101s. They're American engines, which have been used on the Atlas, Delta, and Thor vehicles. I think they're probably just the standard American Vernier thrusters. They provide 5.1 kilonewtons of thrust, which is just perfect for landing on the moon. I couldn't find anything really good that did the same thing. So yeah, I mean, they work. It's a little jank, but they work. The sky crane also includes solar panels, of course, the big ones, so that we have lots of power for our antennas. And then they also have RCS thrusters for ullage, which those burn hydrazine. But yeah, that's pretty much the sky crane. We're just using this antenna I've been using a lot because I don't know, I know it works and it's small and light, so yeah. Anyway, below that, of course, we have our rover. It's a pretty standard rover. I have noticed that its body is upside down. There's nothing I can do about that now, because I actually record these bits after I've recorded the whole video. But yeah, this should be on the bottom, because it's sloped to avoid smashing into things, and that would be a better service for mounting things, but hey, live and learn. So yeah, it has a probe on the front, it has a bunch of scientific equipment, these nice little grey boxes that you get in Realism Overhaul. That's pretty good. And then there's the Geiger counter on the back, a mini goo radiometer, which I guess is just a mystery goo unit, and an RTG for just providing power to the wheels. And yeah, that's about it. This is actually also a probe in I think it's a probe in normal KSP now as well, but anyway, yeah, so that's a probe. It has a bunch of electric charge in it. But anyway, yeah, that's enough rambling. Let's go and see this launch. So here we are on the launch pad with the fantastically creatively named MR1, and I didn't actually mention the VAB, but this rocket has had a very slight upgrade. You can just see on the fins, I've actually put some control surfaces to help with roll, because this is using a hydrogen and liquid oxygen stage. I couldn't find any Vernier thrusters that actually work to control roll, and I do need to control roll because this is actually a bit of an uncontrollable vehicle in the first stages of the atmosphere. So I just threw some control surfaces on there, and this actually flies really nicely now. That's something I very rarely do, but yeah, it works out pretty well. We've separated our boosters now, everything is going well. We pretty much coast for a bit at just a little over 1G, but soon the thrust-to-weight ratio increases as the fuel burns off. But no, I'm very happy with this rocket now. Before it was a bit, but yeah. I have time warped a little bit so that we can launch to the moon in the daytime, because the last few launches have all been at night, and it's a little hard to see in KSP at night, especially with some mods that make it even darker, which is, you know, obviously more realistic, but not great for gameplay, and definitely not great for videos, just staring at basically a black screen. But yes, now we're getting up. The first stage is almost burned out. We'll separate that and then activate the second stage, and there we go. Separate those fairings, because we've gotten pretty high in the atmosphere on the first stage because it's such a light payload. This is a pretty capable vehicle, but I've been using it for fairly light payloads, but because we're going to the moon, it just gives us more delta V, which is really nice. It looks like we're launching into a pretty good trajectory. I think just like 1 degree away from the moon or something like that, which is pretty good. Obviously, Cape Canaveral is lined up to launch into the orbit of the moon. That's why they put it there, I guess, in the Apollo era, which is, well, useful for us going to the moon. Although nowadays they launch everything out of it. I mean, the Falcon, most of the Falcon rockets launch out of Cape Canaveral, so I guess they launch onto a bit of an inclination, which might be problematic for geostationary satellites. I don't know. I guess they just bring their own fuel. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting up to speed now. We're still going to have loads of fuel left in the tanks, so we'll have no problem getting to the moon. Now, we had the same thing last time when we landed that little probe on the moon. All went rather well. And now just extend our orbit out and meet the moon. Tweak it a little bit, and there we go, encounter, and we'll get a little closer and everything like that. Probably will have to do an inclination change and everything, but yeah, pretty good for now. And now we're just lining up with the maneuver node over... Where are we over? I don't think we're over Australia. Usually when we go to the moon it's over Australia and it has very few ground stations. Oh, we're over Africa. And we do have ourselves a ground station, although I think we do lose comms. We've just ditched the second stage there. That was in the dark. You couldn't really see it, but now we're onto the actual transfer stage. I think we do lose comms in a second, but apparently I can still control throttle. I don't know. Remote tech is a confusing beast. It's a good mod, but it does make things a little... Well, I have no problem. In Realism Overhaul, it's much easier because there's like a million ground stations, but when it's just KSP, it is quite difficult. You lose communications a lot, and you can see we've lost our connection there. But apparently I still have throttle control, which is, I don't know. Anyway, let's stop wondering why mods do what they do and just watch us finish the burn. There's very low thrust to weight ratio on this transfer stage, but it doesn't really matter. We have all the time in the world, and I don't have to be that accurate because we have more than enough delta V. Obviously, in real life, you do this with much smaller and more precise vehicles, but I have to fly this myself, so I can't be as precise as a computer. Although I guess I could write KOS code to do it, although that seems like it would make it take a lot longer. Marcus House does some really cool stuff. We haven't watched much of his videos. He also is a KSP YouTuber and does some really cool stuff with KOS, like full Falcon Heavy launches in KSP. So yeah, that's pretty good. But no, watch my videos. But anyway, yes, now we're getting to the moon and we're going to get into orbit and then find ourselves a nice place to land. I do want to land on the side of the moon facing the Earth so that I have communications. But that's in the dark right now, so I guess we're going to have to wait a little while. But, well, that's no problem right now. We just need to get into orbit. That is our key goal. So we just orientate ourselves, warp down to periapsis, get a little too close, actually. I warped right up to the maneuver for some reason, and I'm like, oh, wait, that's not how things work. So I'm actually going to have to do this in 2 burns. We use the RCS thrusters to provide ullage to the engine, fire it up, and get ourselves into orbit. We'll get ourselves into a steep orbit and then come back around and circularize. And yeah, well, this will be our second moon landing of things, and I thought, well, Rover seems more fun than just another probe. Because next episode we will be landing Kerbals on the moon. And there will be an episode after that with something a little more exciting, but I guess you'll have to wait and see. I won't reveal that right now, but yeah, it will be fun to land some Kerbals on the moon next time. If you've been paying attention, you will know that it will be a fairly Apollo-style. Landing, I think. Really, probably not as precise as Neil Armstrong and all of his awesomeness. They landed with just like a little tiny bit of fuel left when they actually did that. It's pretty cool. But no, the episode after that will be something really, really cool. Something a little different. So yeah. Anyway, so now we're just pulling ourselves into a circular orbit, and then there we are, and then we'll have to wait until it is light on the side of the moon facing the Earth. And through the magic of editing, we're here, and we're going to land in this big kind of black bit, the dark bit, the crater, what caused that? I guess maybe just an ancient impact. Anyway, we use the last of the transfer stage to slow us down a bit, and then activate the sky crane. Now, we do have limited ignitions in this. There is a setting that provides you multiple ignitions, but I only have 5, which is it's quite a few. But it's not perfect, which means I have to get this all done in 5 ignitions, and I can't throttle the engines. So I have to pretty much just do a few slowdown maneuvers, and then just kind of guess the burn at the end and hope that it works. So yeah, hopefully it'll work. And also I do need the sky crane to survive, because I didn't mention this in the VAB, but that is my communications thing. So that's going to sit on the surface and communicate with Earth, and then its small antenna will communicate with the rover's small antenna, and that'll be how I'll control the rover. So yeah. Anyway, we're coming down. Everything's looking rather good. Every time I fire up the engines, I have to fire up a little bit of the RCS as well. So I'm just leaving that on because there is a signal delay. So it's about a second right now because of remote tech. So I'm just leaving RCS on. But every time I throttle down the engines, I have to fire the RCS again and get it working to get the fuel in the right place, ullage and all of that. So yes, we've just done a few burns to slowly bring our velocity down. This is our third burn, bringing it really low so that we can just coast and fall towards the moon. And I think now we just have 2 ignitions left, I think. 1? Yeah. No, yeah, okay, 2, because this is the final, no, the second to last slowdown maneuver, getting us below 20 meters per second, and then totally first time, not second time after crashing, we're gonna land. So we're into 1 times time accelerate. Coming down at about 40 meters per second, we fire up the engines just before the surface of the moon. Before we start heading back up, I throttle down the engines, and now we just have to fall, using RCS to slow down a little bit. But there we go, 3 meters per second, and we land fine. We decouple the sky crane, it flies off, uses 2 of its solar panels to cushion the landing, which I was kind of expecting, and then we'll just sit on the moon. It has enough power, and it will be able to communicate with Earth. So, successful mission, totally first, not second time. Anyway, so yes, there we go, all landed and well. So we'll switch to the rover and see if the communication setup works and see if everything is good. But yes, I've gotten reasonably good at landing on the moon. I'll make sure I bring more ignitions for the actual Kerbal's landing. I wouldn't want to risk them like that. And yes, here is the rover. Apparently I attached both the decouplers the wrong way round, so those are still on the rover. So yeah, this was a pretty janky mission. But anyway, yes, the rover is working anyway. Nonetheless, all the slight mistakes I made, everything is fine. Now we're into some time acceleration, doing some science, getting some radiometers and temperatures and stuff, and just having a little jaunt around, seeing what the moon's like. It's pretty cold, turns out, and doesn't have any atmosphere. Who knew? It has a little bit of earthquakes, I don't know. Anyway, then I quickly try and avoid hitting the comms dish and flip the rover really badly, and don't have any torque to flip it back. And after a lot of bouncing, it lands on its back, so that's fucked. It was a short mission, but hey, we got what we needed. It would just be nice if the rover didn't flip. But anyway, on to better and slightly equally faily things. So now we're launching the Griffin 4 mission, our first manned mission to the moon. It won't be landing, we're just going to do a simulation of everything but landing. Not a simulation, like a test run of everything but landing, and just make sure everything works. So the big 3 are back, inexplicably. I think they're invincible. And yeah, the first launch doesn't go super well, because a few minutes into flight, we try and get rid of the launch escape system, but apparently it activated both the launch escape system and the abort system, which means we've decoupled the capsule on top of a hot rocket, which is still moving. So yeah, and obviously we just ditched the escape system, so we can't escape the rocket, so we're just gonna have to sort of hope. I do fire up the engines and everything and try and get out of there, but it doesn't really work, and the rocket just starts to flip and twist, and I really should have checked my staging. Check your staging, y'all. And yeah, the rocket starts to spin out of control, but the crew survives. The engines are the fuel eventually burns out and everything's fine. We do actually get ourselves onto a suborbital trajectory. The rocket is spinning so much. But yeah, so that was a bit of an odd one. I ditched the abort system, and that caused something that needed the abort system. But anyway, the crew survives. We go through a re-entry, get to watch a whole rocket burn up. Look at that. Just back there, exploding in gloriousness. Look at it. Beautiful. And then we're going to go land on the ocean. So I guess we've got to go back to the VAB, make sure the ditch abort system doesn't also decouple the capsule, and then try again. The big 3, of course, will be happy to get back in a rocket, because they are just unshakable. So there they are back in. They're like, yeah, you've killed us twice and almost killed us again, but we trust you, buddy. So yes, they're on top of the on the vehicle now. So what is this? I didn't look at it in the VAB because it's basically the same as the vehicle from last time, the Griffin 3, where this just went to orbit and then came back. The only difference is it has a slightly bigger third stage, and it has a dummy payload simulating the lander. So what we're going to do is head up to the moon, get into orbit, and come back, and the capsule, the command module, is obviously going to flip around and grab the dummy payload, which is just a fuel tank, and is going to take it as if it were the lander to the moon to test all of the systems. And if that works, we are ready to go to the moon next episode. We decouple the launch escape system, and nothing breaks, which is good, because it's not great when everything breaks. So yeah. Anyway. So we're getting up into the higher atmosphere now, heading towards space with the highly capable rocket. The clean separation there with those Ullage thrusters separating the stage. And now we just have the long burn to get into orbit. So this is obviously also a test of the launch vehicle, because the dummy payload simulating the lander is about 17 tons, so a little heavier than the real lunar excursion module. And if all of this succeeds, it means that the rocket is capable, the third stage is capable, the capsule is capable, and the only thing we'll need to test is the lander, and that'll happen when we land on the moon. So it's testing every system except the lander, is basically the point of this mission. So yeah, everything looks good. We'll definitely make it to orbit if nothing explodes, which I can't see how it could, but I mean, it is me, so it's been a pretty explosive series. I mean, I guess Realism Overhaul adds enough difficulty that it's kind of like being in the early stages of playing KSP again, where I just kill Kerbals all the time and just fuck up all the time, because it's a little more complicated, it's a little faster and bigger, so yeah, things go wrong. Anyway, what doesn't go wrong, however, is our orbital insertion, and we're going to get into orbit with a little bit of fuel left in the second stage tanks, which is rather nice. So yeah, we've still got about 200 meters per second, so we could actually up the size of the payload a little bit if we need to, which is good. Anyway, we get our maneuver locked in to go to the moon, and the third stage will take us there, except not entirely. So we found the first flaw in all of this. The third stage is short about 300 meters per second of delta V, but I don't see that being a problem. I can just increase the size of it, and since there was 200 meters per second left of delta V in the second stage, I'm fairly confident that this will be able to be upgraded to be actually capable of this. The problem this presents now, however, is I have to finish the burn with the command module, so I've got to turn around, grab it, and then do this very quickly so that I can complete the burn as soon as possible. Which isn't great. Also, I accidentally decoupled the connector, which made the third stage even start rotating, which made this docking very difficult. In addition, the thrusters aren't placed particularly well for actual maneuvering, so I'm going to have to move them, and we actually failed to dock. Because it just takes too long and I've got to complete this burn. So, that is the second failure of this mission. We failed to dock. Now, in the actual mission, we'll have more time, and I won't, smack the third stage with a decoupler. So hopefully that'll be okay, but we're just going to carry on the mission without the dummy lander on the front of the rocket. And it's not ideal, but hopefully it should be okay. We get onto our trajectory to the moon, and if we get back with enough delta V, I'll just compare that to the delta V of the capsule with the lander on top of it, and ensure that it does have the right amount of delta V. Anyway, we're at the moon now. We get out for a little EVA. Jeb trying to get a reflection in this. You actually can see the moon reflector in there. It's just not great. And then we're just going to get back into the pod, get into orbit, fly around the moon a bit, and then come back. This also will be testing the heat shield, of course. We've had problems with that in the past. One of the suggestions was that the heat shield wasn't lunar rated. It is lunar rated, turns out. So I think the problem before was I just didn't have very good control. But with Kerbals in the pod, there'll be no problem controlling myself on reentry and keeping myself orientated correctly, so we should be fine. Anyway, now we are just going to get into orbit, fire up those engines, provide Ullage with the RCS and all of that, and get going. I really do like how this 3-engine setup looks. I think it looks really nice. Yeah. Anyway, everyone's looking rather happy to be in orbit of the moon. Pretty great. We've got Kerbals to the moon, everybody. We're almost finished with our mission. And it's looking pretty good. Few problems today, but I'm pretty confident that all of this is capable. I'm just going to obviously check out the delta V, and I actually already have, and everything will be fine as long as I can just upgrade that third stage a little bit and have a little more time to dock and change the RCS a little bit just to make it a little better. And yeah, everything will be fine, he said after killing a lot of Kerbals. Anyway, we've got our maneuver locked in to head back to the moon. We've just done ourselves just one orbit of the moon. Take a nice look at it, let the Kerbals have a little, oh god. I don't know why I always feel like I should leave Kerbals places for longer so that they can so that they can enjoy it. Like, they're just like little pictures on the screen, and I'm like, well, I want to leave them here, otherwise, you know, they haven't been here long enough. I get the most out of those games, you know. Anyway, yeah, I guess it's just a realism thing, right? Anyway, so yes, we're just doing our burn now, and we should escape. And we'll actually have 800 meters per second of delta V left, so it looks like if we did have the lander on the front, there would have been no problem. So, yeah, everything's good. I'm having to really justify that after the various failures today, but everything's okay. Anyway, so yeah, we get ourselves our trajectory to about 75 kilometers of periapsis, and then leave the moon. Goodbye, moon. It's been nice seeing you. We'll be back soon, and we will land on you. But yeah, alright, so now for the risky bit, re-entry. So here we are, coming down. So I kind of pussy out a little bit here. I have some fuel left in the tanks, and I really don't want to kill the Kerbal, so I fire up the engines, burn off 400 meters per second of delta V to slow myself down a little bit, because I'm not super confident I'll be able to capture properly, and then there's electric charge issues and everything like that. So I burned off 400 meters per second of delta V. I did have some more in the tanks, but I wouldn't have that if I'd had the lander. But I do think I would have had that 400 meters per second, so I'm feeling pretty confident. Re-entry starts going well. We lose the drogue chutes, but that's not really a problem. They're just kind of there for show. And then we actually skip off the atmosphere, as I intended, to be a little bit like the Apollo missions, and also because you kind of have to do that at these velocities. And then we're going to come back around and hopefully have enough ablator left on our heat shield to re-enter properly. So, here we go! The second re-entry, hopefully this will go well. I'm really mostly confident that this won't burn up. We'll obviously have no problem orientating ourselves so that we don't burn up from just like catching flames over the heat shield. But if the heat shield runs out of ablator, it is a problem, and it is getting pretty low, and it's getting real fucking tenuous, and it's looking like we might lose everything and something starts catching on fire and it's not looking great, but the heat shield survives. We do get through with, I think, about 30, slightly less than 30 units of ablator left, but we're okay. And we have re-entered fine, and we will go and land in the ocean safely. So, all is rather good. I'm pretty proud of this. I'm pretty happy with this mission. It's had its problems, but we've learned a lot. That's why we did this first, so that we could learn that for the third stage needs more fuel, learn that we need to, you know, make the RCS better and everything like that. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident that we can go and land on the moon next episode. I hope you're confident too, and I didn't have to convince you too much. But, yeah. Alright, so, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you'll come back for next episode, where we'll be actually landing Kerbals on the moon, and it'll be great, and it's, you know, taking a little while, but, I think I did it right. I think everything's gonna be okay. If I say it enough times, it'll be okay. Alright, anyway though, I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been Gatsby with Tape. I will see you next time.